Carolina. Bobby, how is your Sunday morning?
Good. You look like you get the Sunday scaries.
I look like a serial killer right now.
Dude, it's crazy. I this is like weird, kind of, almost.
You're like afraid to go on. All right, you ready to get into the the Sunday slate?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
All right, first game I have on deck is Tampa versus Arizona. Tampa are 4.5-point home favorites, 52 total. I don't think there's been any movement since the middle of the week to Wednesday show we did. So I guess this one starts off with: are you playing Chris Godwin, the every other game narrative, or is it just another Mike Evans week who, despite how much we think Chris Godwin's better, just keeps getting all the targets and all the air yards?
Yeah, I like Godwin. I think he's fine. I would prefer him to Evans with Evans and Patrick Peterson. And Winston's projecting really well as well. Don't mind Rashard Perryman. I think he's interesting in tournaments at his price tag, especially with the target share that he saw last year. And Patrick Peterson on Evans, which may funnel passes to Perryman versus an Arizona secondary that's not great, and has given up pretty good passing yards to opposing quarterbacks. I don't mind Perryman in tournaments either. OJ Howard and Cameron Brate will probably split, so I don't really love that. And it kind of sucks versus a team like Arizona, who we've streamed tight ends against. That's pretty much it for me on the Tampa Bay side. How about
Yeah,
you?
one player you didn't talk about, I think, is Ronald Jones. Got, I think, 18 carries last week,
Yeah.
handful of targets. Has not all season brought down many of his targets, but he'll keep getting them. And if he's the starter, which he is, and he's getting all the starters work, he's a fine play. On the Arizona side, Kyler Murray is always in play for me. He has 100-yard rushing upside every week. And then for his receivers, Larry Fitzgerald just doesn't have the depth of target or the yards. He's not Larry Fitzgerald anymore. He's just a corpse of a man running out there. No matter how many targets he gets, it seems like his ceiling is 9 points. So probably not playing him. Christian Kirk is a fine play. Last week, didn't really do much, but I think he's had 3 games of 10-plus targets, and he's only played 5 or 6 games. So you get that upside in any given week, and I don't even think he's had an explosion game where he scores and hits the 100-yard bonus. So this is probably, if it were to ever happen in a game, it'd probably be this one. So I think he's probably the only place I'd go on the receiving side. Then, Matthew Stafford has fractured bones. Gross. And then in terms of the rushing side, I think David Johnson at his price, 5,700, is probably in play. I think Kenyon Drake is just going to be probably an overpriced Chase Edmonds from earlier in the season, like the week 3 Chase Edmonds we got. I'd be interested in Kenyon Drake at 40 whatever 100, but at 55 I believe he is, or 56, I'd probably just go to David Johnson.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in the running backs. I think Kirk's a good call in Kyler as the stack. Kyler's viable for cash. That's pretty much all I have from Arizona. I'm not versus run defense. I'm not really going to the running backs. I could get using Drake, but Edmonds had that success with Kirk out, so he was lining up in the slot a lot. I just think it's going to be pretty difficult to kind of repeat that, and at that price tag.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next game I have is Kansas City versus Tennessee. Tennessee, let's see, 6-point underdogs. This line took a while to open because we didn't know if Patrick Mahomes is playing, but he is, so they're 6-point home underdogs. Total up to 49.5. With Mahomes in, I think you have to consider pretty much everybody on the Kansas City side. For me, I think Damian Williams is a sneaky play, basically getting all the work since the late game LaShawn McCoy fumble from 2 weeks ago, I believe. Getting all the work since then. And so I think we've seen his playmaking ability. Of course, he's a starting running back on the Kansas City Chiefs. That gives him 2 to 3 touchdown upside, honestly, given how easily they score. And then for me, I'd probably go to Travis Kelce. I think Tyreek Hill's always in playing tournaments. Travis Kelce, I think, has gotten 8 targets in basically every game this year. He's averaged 9 over the past 4 games. So getting that type of volume from Patrick Mahomes, and he's been relatively disappointing up to this point. I think he's a good tournament play. Obviously, I'm not paying up for my tight end in cash, but that's where I'd go on that side. I don't know if it's official yet, but Corey Davis was listed as doubtful earlier in the week. I
think he's out.
What?
I think he's out.
Yeah, yeah. So he not playing. AJ Brown for me, basically cash game consideration, 4,400, I believe, for a starting wide receiver one playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to be down, so they're going to be throwing a lot, and Ryan Tannehill's been fine. So I really like 4,400 is pretty free for me at his price.
Yeah, consider it. He's a lock in cash, AJ Brown. Yeah, I don't know. I think Adam Humphries and Jonnu Smith are both in play in this game now. You take out Delaney Walker, Corey Davis. Guy I think is kind of sneaky, especially in a pace-up spot for Tennessee that no one's really talking about is Dion Lewis at 3,900. Especially when you take Corey Davis out, it's just an extra pass catcher that they'll likely need in this game with the game script. So I don't mind him. And like I said, Walker's out, Corey Davis out. Like they're gonna have to throw here, and I think it just pushes Lewis's upside pretty significantly. And yeah, AJ Brown's a lock in cash. I think Derrick Henry's fine as well at 6,400 because now he's gonna have to get more pass game equity. Maybe like one or two catches more. I think I'd just prefer Lewis at 3,900. Maybe that's a bad take.
I don't think he's the worst play. I've been a Dion Lewis stan for a while, and I honestly don't think the losses at receiver for a receiver and tight end for Tennessee really would necessarily funnel like any work to Derrick Henry. I think it would mostly just they'd probably get Dion Lewis on the field more. Probably
seems like a Dion Lewis game. I think Dion Lewis is sneaky in tournaments. I think, and also running it back, like I really like Tyreek. I like Kelce, like you kind of hit on. Paying up at tight end is going to be a different construction on DraftKings. Yeah. So I think it makes sense. Damian Williams, I think, was a sharp call on your part. I love Mahomes. I think Mahomes is solid. Definitely, if you go this Chiefs stack, you're probably not paying up for McCaffrey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that'll be really chalky this week, as last week people were hesitant to pay up $10K and he just smashed his price. I think it will probably end up being more popular than it was last week.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Next game I have is Bills-Browns. Bills are 2.5-point road dogs. It's a 41.5-point total. Basically no movement that I'm seeing since opening. So for me, I'm pretty much just looking at two spots in this game, and it's both of the backfields. I think Nick Chubb is going to be super low owned. I've seen already people considering playing Kareem Hunt, and I think he'll just take over that Dontrell Hilliard role, which isn't worth playing for me. I think he's going to put up numbers, but not enough to play. It's really getting people off Nick Chubb, though, despite the fact that he's a home favorite against a run funnel defense. Like, I don't really care too much about the run funnel, but I think that's more of a product of their games are kind of paced down, so it's easy for teams to run on them. So I think Nick Chubb's a real sneaky play. Probably not looking to Odell. I'd just rather, honestly, if you're getting the same amount of targets, just play Jarvis Landry for like 4,900.
But are you getting the same amount of targets? Because they said they're going to force feed Odell, even in Denzel Ward's Tre'Davious White's coverage. Like, I kind of think I kind of like Odell. I kind of like Baker too, as well. I hate saying that, but I kind of like Baker. I just want to, like, if Odell has a 100-yard game, like Baker's tied to that, and he's at 6%. I like a. Oh my God, it's too early. I like a Cleveland Browns stack, to be perfectly honest. I like the stacking one of the running backs and Odell. I liked Hunt, but I don't know. I was on the Hunt Odell train with Baker for a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to stay on it though.
Yeah, I mean,
really fish play. I feel like it could be a really fish call.
It could end up being like my Mitchell Trubisky talk last week. Just how bad Baker's played. But I mean, I still genuinely believe that this is an offense like rife with talent, and they will get right at some point. Is it this week? I don't know. I think Nick Chubb is the best way to attack it. But I do think that like Baker Odell stacks are going to hit at some point this season. I think it's probably more likely that it comes down the road. But I don't know. You could always talk me into playing.
Did you hear the coach? Did you hear the Baker speak? It wasn't even coach speak. It was Baker speak. He was saying earlier in the week.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to. I don't really weigh that, but I don't weigh that as much as I weigh the fact that him and Landry are tied in targets on the season. But you can read into that. Devin Singletary on the other side, we should talk about.
Well, the A-Dot with Odell.
Yeah, he's like the problem is he's like kind of like been quarantined to almost like a Marvin Jones role where he's like decent volume deep threat, but he's not like leading the league in WAP or anything like he has in years past. So
Yeah, but Kyle, things can change, you know. I don't know.
they could.
Yeah, I'd rather be ahead of it than behind it. You know, 6% ownership at 6,400.
Yeah, I mean anyone's in play at that percentage, especially with the talent that
It's not in tournaments though. Think of the equity that Odell brings versus someone else at 6%.
he hasn't this year is the thing. All year he hasn't. Maybe one game, but
I know, but it's gonna come.
you know, I don't disagree with that. If you
like
think
Callaway
if you think it's this week, what?
I like Callaway as well.
I love Callaway. I love Antonio Callaway. Just like basically can get there on any single play the way they use him. So I if you really want to get different, run it with Callaway and Odell. But on the other side, Devin
Jones might fit as well.
On the other side, Devin Singletary got his first like big volume game last week, 20 carries and 3 catches, I think. Problem for me is you talked about this, and I didn't know this, that they gave basically Frank Gore all of their goal line work. He still got like 11 carries, so he's still getting like, would that be, I don't know, 30% or more, over like 35 or 6% of the team's carries out of the backfield. So I don't know. Devin Singletary wasn't this full-time workhorse, even as much as like Ronald Jones was in terms of market share. So I still think he's in play for cash, but I don't mind fading him in tournaments, especially if you run like Browns defense, Nick Chubb or something like that, if he's going to be chalky, which I think he will be. So
yeah, Devin Singletary was my play last week. I was ahead of the curve on the play. So I kind of like, you know what I mean? Like I was watching that game. It's on Singletary. Now, I don't know. I think he's fine, but I don't know. I don't mind being a week early than a week late on most guys, you know?
Yeah, I get that. Next game we have Lamar Jackson, the Ravens play the Bengals, 10.5-point favorites at the Bengals. Totals moved down 2.5 points to 44. I mean, Lamar Jackson in play in cash, despite how much you're paying up for him, because he's a fine passer and he is like he's the best rushing quarterback maybe ever. Like he's on pace to go over 1,000 yards, which only a handful of quarterbacks have ever done. So I think he's in play in cash. In tournaments, though, my question would be, it's hard to run him back. Tyler Boyd has gotten a ton of targets and hasn't done anything with them. AJ Green is out. So he'd be the only guy I'd run it back with, but he really, I don't know. He's a guy who he's a guy who I think it's fine to be ahead of the curve on as opposed to Odell Beckham because he's getting the volume, just hasn't produced. So that's where I would go to, run it back with. I think Marquise Brown very much in play. Stack with Lamar Jackson, run it back with Tyler Boyd. What are you doing with this game, especially since the totals moved down 2.5 points, which kind of sucks for your stacks?
Yeah, I like Boyd, but I don't know. I like Hollywood Brown. Lamar Jackson's definitely in playing cash. That's pretty much it, though. Bengals D is also in play in cash.
Yeah, it's what are they like, 15 or 1,700, something like that?
Yep.
Yeah, at that price, basically they just need to get a handful of sacks, which teams have done against Lamar Jackson, and he's also in those games turned the ball over when he tends to get sacked. So at that price, any defense is in play at that price, honestly. So easy game. Next one, Giants Jets. Jets are 3-point home dogs. Totals moved up point 44.5. I think Saquon at his price, like we saw him priced up much higher in years or in last year. I think at his price, what he's like 8,800, I believe, is a sneaky play that I don't think people are going to be on because they're going to go all the way up to McCaffrey. I don't know. I'm hardly playing any Jets. I think Jamison Crowder. If you run Saquon, maybe run it back with one of Jamison Crowder or Robbie Anderson. But I don't know. No, neither of these teams. I guess Darius Slayton, 4,200, a guy we've talked to death about because every week it seems like all of the Giants are dead. At 4,200, he's a guy who had like a massive explosion game a few weeks ago, and I think that could be in play again.
Yeah, I think I like the Giants stack actually. Slayton, Saquon, and Daniel Jones or Golden Tate. It's just a 3-man stack. They have like a 23.5 team total. I know it's not very high, but it's higher than most. The total kind of went down in this game too, which kind of I was on it earlier in the week to kind of stack it up. wanted to run it back with Robbie Anderson. Think he's a good play. It's just I don't love too many Jets. Lev, Robbie Anderson, that's pretty much it on the other side.
Yeah, I think that covers it. I think I would probably I don't want to say fade Le'Veon Bell, but I probably wouldn't be on him at all. Just the way they've used him, like this
I get it.
Workhorse role. They're not a high team total. I don't know. It's not something I'd look to. I think I don't mind the Giants stack though, and I think despite the fact they have a lower, like not a super high team total compared to some of the other ones, you can basically capture all their points with like all of 2 to 3 plays.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, our next game, and I see we have a bunch of questions. We'll just run through them all at the end because it's easier to organize my life that way. All right, we have probably the game of the week. It's Falcons versus Saints. Saints are 14-point home favorites at the Superdome. It's a 51.5-point total. For me, all three of Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas are in play for cash. I think I'm probably still running Christian McCaffrey over Alvin Kamara just because I don't think that Alvin Kamara is going to return to like a significantly reduced role. But if they were smart, they probably wouldn't run him as much and get Latavius Murray involved, given how well Murray has played. I'd want to save Alvin Kamara for late in the season, and I think that's something they talked about in the offseason, that they still want to get Latavius Murray involved in that Mark Ingram role. So that's probably why I wouldn't like the argument against him in cash is that he doesn't get a ton of volume like we saw earlier in the season, but I think he's still in play. In tournaments, I'm going to be filthily overweight on him.
Yeah, Michael Thomas is a lock. Kamara, not so much in cash for me, but tournaments definitely. I like both running backs for New Orleans in this game. Teddy Ginn's also a fine play, I think, in Drew Brees stacks in tournaments. On the Atlanta side, I don't hate Atlanta. They're in the dome, going overlooked. Definitely have a usage issue with Mohamed Sanu now out of the picture. And Julio going to be covered by Marcus Lattimore. I think it points to Hooper, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, those type of guys. So I don't mind stacking up the Atlanta side because I think they're going to go relatively low on here. I'm actually going to pull that up.
Yeah, I think one guy you mentioned, Russell Gage, few people have probably ever heard of, but he was a guy who basically ran with the ones in preseason when they were sitting their starters. He was kind of the next rotation in, and he got 8 targets, and I believe he played about 2/3 of the snaps last week, or I guess it would have been probably 2 weeks ago at this point, their last game. I don't want to say he entirely took over the Mohamed Sanu role, but he did take a large chunk of that role over, and at 3,400, what is he? He's a guy who, if we had any larger of a sample that he was going to continue to play that role, would be in consideration for cash. But if not, it's just a really good tournament play for me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
One other guy, Austin Hooper. I think Julio Jones is fine. It's just he hasn't gotten these same insane market share of targets and air yards as he has in years past. He's still up there, but he's not number one by a wide margin, which he was last season. It was him and DeAndre Hopkins. Now he's a little lower on that target totem pole. And because of I guess one of the guys that's caused that is Austin Hooper, who I think at his price is a fine play if you're stacking this game.
Yeah, Hooper's good. Dude, what hotel are you in?
It's a creepy one. That's how I describe it. Let's see. I'll let you stand at the Ted Ginn Gospel for a minute because it's a good play, and I'll let you talk about it because you always seem to think it's a good play.
It's a good play, dude.
I don't disagree. I played him. He's a fine tournament play, especially with Drew Brees back, and he's an even better tournament.
The problem is he's just. I don't love it. It's just everyone's gonna. If you're playing in tournaments, you're not gonna be the only one going there in a dome versus Atlanta. I'd rather play Russell Gage and be different in that way.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. If you think Ted Ginn's gonna be owned and Russell Gage won't, that's obviously a good pivot to make.
Yeah.
All right. Next game we have some breaking-ish news breaking within the last half hour or so. No more Matthew Stafford on the Lions. He is out. They will be starting. Oh no, are they starting Jeff Driscoll? Why would they do such a thing? The Bears are playing the Lions. They are 3-point home favorites. Totals moved down 3 points because the Lions are starting Jeff Driscoll. Matthew Stafford out with a back injury. Apparently, he's like fractured bones in his back or something. That's awful. But I don't know. It's so easy for me to just write this game off.
Yeah, David Montgomery and cash. That's it.
Yeah, he's getting the lion's share, ironically, the lion's share of the team's work. Totally fine, especially now. He's a big home favorite. They've, in the past 2 weeks, with Trubisky struggling, they've given him a lot of work. That looks like it's going to continue. It's basically, I'm running 2 of McCaffrey and then 2 of Ronald Jones, Devin Singletary, and David Montgomery in cash. I think all 3 are fine.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But like legitimately with this game, the total moving so far down, it's probably the lowest total. Yeah, it's the lowest total on the entire main slate. Totally fine to just fade this game, save for your one David Montgomery. Next game, Miami versus the Colts. Colts are 10.5-point home favorites with a 43.5-point total, but they will be starting Brian Hoyer. Zach Pascal got priced up, but he's the number 1 receiver. I think he's fine if you're running like Devontae Parker one-offs. I think it's fine to correlate that with like Zach Pascal or Jack Doyle at 3,600. Jack Doyle, like just so clearly this team starting tight end. Even with all the injuries they had last week, Eric Ebron got on the field for like 33% of the snaps. Like no matter what happens, they just seem to think he's like legitimately a backup tight end. So I'll treat him as such, and I'm not playing the backup tight end for a Brian Hoyer-led team. So Jack Doyle is fine. Zach Pascal is fine. But I don't know. I don't see a ton of upside in this game. I think on the other side, you're getting really condensed target share on a Miami team that's played better in the past few weeks. They're still not good, but you're getting a really condensed target share between Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki. So Mike Gesicki at 3,100, very much in play in cash. I guess one other thing we should have talked about is the other tight end I'd be looking to is Rhett Ellison at 2,500 on the dot. The one game Evan Ingram didn't play earlier in the season, he got like 7 targets, played 100% of the snaps. Getting a lot of time on the field with Red.
I'm not sighing. I just got a text from Justin asking me if he can fade Michael Thomas and GPPs. Like, yeah, bud, you can do whatever you want.
Sure. Yeah, you could.
You could.
Run 0% of him. Play the million, run 0.
Yeah, don't play any. Yeah.
Michael Thomas guy's not even that good, honestly.
No, he's not. He's not the highest projected play on the slate by a long shot.
I don't even know what game we were talking about. I guess, I don't know, any interest in the Dolphins-Colts game? Because that's, especially with Brian Hoyer, it's another one where, like, I don't know, don't care too much. I think in cash it's fine to run Parker, but particularly Gesicki for me. I don't know. Outside of that,
Yeah, cash is going to get interesting because if Ricky Seals-Jones is ruled out, Demetrius Harris is in play. Not that he's too thin, but he's definitely a tournament play. Fringe cash.
Yeah,
you're not playing him over.
Call, actually. That was,
you're not playing him over Gesicki, though. You're not playing him. Jonnu Smith's in play for cash.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's only if I would only run him if you were running your Baker, like, Brown stacks. But, like, if Ricky Seals-Jones is out, you expect Demetrius Harris to play like almost all the team snaps at tight end. Yeah, he could easily fall his way into the end zone or get a few catches.
Yep.
But yeah, in this game, I'm not doing anything with the Dolphins backfield, to be clear, with Kenyon Drake. Why would you just pay whatever it is more to get up to David Montgomery, to get up to Devin Singletary? Or Kalen Ballage, I might have said Kenyon Drake. Kalen Ballage, they hate Kalen Ballage. He was like rumored to be like a summer breakout candidate, and then they pushed him to 3rd on the team's depth chart, and they've been doing everything they can to not get him the ball. And when they do, he's been awfully inefficient. Like there's no reason to play him.
Do we know if Myles Gaskins is going to be like incorporated? Was there any coach speak?
I did not hear the coach speak, but I would be relatively surprised if he got like no work. I would imagine he takes on like the Mark Walton type of role from earlier in the season. It's not going to be enough, in my opinion, to make him in play. It's more just enough to never play Kalen Ballage.
Okay. Gaskins is pretty good on the he's pretty fast on the fast track there.
Yeah, no, I would, if if we get like if Myles Gaskins goes out and like goes 50-50 with Kalen Ballage and touches, I don't know who the Dolphins play next week, but like I would consider him in a week from now.
Dude,
but
I'm about to just throw my phone off a wall.
Go for it. Just go for it. Get rid of that thing. You don't need it anyways. Next game we have Rams versus Steelers. Pittsburgh 4-point home dogs. Totals moved down 1.5 from 45 to 43.5. I think I probably trashed Jalen Samuels earlier in the week, and I'm still not playing him in cash because I think there are better values. But yeah, I think the receiving game equity gets apparently you're liable for a 100-yard receiving game bonus at 6,300. You're getting sort of a workhorse back, although he did get out carried by what was it, Trey Edmonds, 10-8. So you're not getting a ton of rushing game work, but the amount of receiving work he gets is incredible. And they're supposed to be losing to a good Rams team, so it sets up game script wise well for him. On the other side, I think you can always run Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff stacks. I think the only question to me is who you'd run it back with on their team, like who would be your third man in your stack, and it's Josh Reynolds at 3,800. Very clearly, just stepped into the Brandon Cooks role seamlessly. Got like a handful of targets. What did he get by last week? I don't know. Last week or whenever they last played, got a handful of targets. Played like 90% of the snaps. He's just less athletic, slower Cooper or Brandon Cooks, but that's fine at 3,800.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't hate the call.
Any interest? I just love throwing these softballs. Any interest in Todd Gurley?
Nope.
Yeah. On the Pittsburgh side, I would run it back with, even though I'm typically not running it back with running backs. Jalen Samuels is like glorified, like James White, Deion Lewis type. So I think it's fine to run it back with him in that sense. Like Juju getting just a very low amount of the team's targets for his talent. It's always fine to run him back, like with the Odell thing, like a guy of his talent, his price, his ownership. I'm always fine with it, but like just projection wise, it doesn't seem like a great play.
No, I'm with you. I love it.
Next game and the last game of the slate, Carolina Panthers versus the Green Bay Packers. The total moved down from 6 to 4.5. I think that all happened earlier in the week. The Packers home favorites, obviously, a 48-point total. This one, quietly the third best game on the slate, pretty clearly, I believe. Oh, I guess with Patrick Mahomes playing, it's like up there with that game as like the second or the third, fourth best game. For me, McCaffrey, despite his price, is still a good play in cash, but in tournaments, there is a very solid argument that he really needs to hit like 4x. What is that, like 40 something like that? I don't know. It's just so hard for any player to hit. Like, it's really, I don't know. I don't mind like fading him or at least going with the field on him in tournaments. I'm definitely not going to be overweight just because I think you can if he goes for 20 points, he crushes anyone who plays him. And he's going to be super popular. And 20 points is still a projectably fine game. So.
Yeah, I'm with the field on him. I think it's fine to run it back with Devontae. I don't really love this game. I don't really love this slate, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, this McCaffrey price tag, like I just think this is going to be a really bad take by the end of the day, but I'd much rather play Saquon than McCaffrey.
I don't mind that.
If I was MMEing, I'd be with the field on him. Like I don't think he's someone to fully fade at all with that usage. I think you made the right call there by saying you're going to be with the field on him, but I'd just rather pay for Saquon in a situation where you're taking out two of their number one significantly two of their best pass catchers, and he's obviously going to pick it up in the passing game. Like he just seems like a better play.
No, I have no problem with that, especially given.
I've seen a lot of cash game builds that obviously have McCaffrey. I don't think they're the right plays, but if I have to go that way, I'll go that way in cash.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong. I think it's a sharp call, especially in tournaments, obviously, as we're talking about. What else in this game? Let's see. You talked about Devontae Adams, but he came back and got like 11 targets right away. It was, the game script kind of set up for him to get a lot of targets, but he's clearly fully healthy, or at least they're going to use him like that. I think if you're running this game, running Devontae Adams back with maybe one of DJ Moore or Curtis Samuel. Dude, DJ Moore has some serious touchdown regression coming his way. Like, he's gotten a 100-yard bonus, I think, once or twice this season. I don't know if he even has like a touchdown. He has like one, despite getting like 8+ targets in each of his past 3 or 4 games. I don't know. He's got touchdowns coming his way. I'm just keep running DJ Moore. And they don't really seem to price him up. He's like a clear number 1 wide receiver at 5,200.
No, I'm with you. I think he's a good play. Sharp call, correlating him with Kyle Allen. I think their ownership will be relatively depressed. And McCaffrey's the highest usage guy on the slate. Like, one leverage in tournaments is that people are going to be trying to make a decision on McCaffrey, and they're just going to totally overlook that stack.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that stack goes like pretty underowned. Yeah, I think that's a good call, and you can run it back with basically one player and capture a lot of the receiving game work with Devontae Adams.
Samuel has the higher air yards.
Yeah, he is at 40. I think he's a fine play.
They're both really good plays. The stack in itself is a really good play.
Yeah, DJ Moore gets more of the targets because he runs these like higher percentage lower A-dot routes, but then Curtis Samuel gets so many air yards because he just gets like a decent amount of volume deep down the field. So, and his yards after the catch ability is pretty awesome. Like, he's just an incredible athlete too. So both of them are good plays. They don't get priced up for whatever reason. DK does not price up either of the Carolina receivers.
Yeah, I get you. It is what it is. I think it's a shot. I think going to those guys isn't the worst call in tournaments because, yeah, I think it's actually a pretty sharp call. People won't want to go there because of last week with the Chargers. Yeah, what about fading McCaffrey and playing the 2 receiver? No, I wouldn't do that. You're pretty much all in on McCaffrey in that case.
Yeah, I think if you're like stacking this game, I don't know. It's hard for me to think this game like hits the over, but McCaffrey doesn't get there as a problem.
No, I'm with you.
All right, let's roll through some questions. Hi guys, sorry I missed last week, but I'm back to my usual. Since I'm 6-1 for the year, head-to-head QB and defense. I think this is typically for FanDuel. This person asked the QB defense question on FanDuel. Where'd you go at quarterback and defense on FanDuel?
Quarterback and defense on FanDuel? I went, I think Lamar Jackson, and defense, I have the Browns.
Yeah, the Browns are my defense on both sites, I think. Lamar Jackson, actually, honestly, I think the pricing is kind of similar at both those positions right now. Browns defense, Lamar Jackson is probably the sharp call. Pick'em question: can Detroit beat Chicago if Stafford can't go? Can San Francisco beat Seattle if Kittle can't go? I mean, okay, yeah, I guess Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle. I'd probably go Seattle with Kittle out, and I'd go Chicago with Jeff Driscoll playing.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Chicago with Drake. Yeah, Chicago.
Good morning on PPR. Should I start Allen Robinson or Ronald Jones in my flex? I'd probably start Ronald Jones. You get just significantly more touchdown equity compared to the game Allen Robinson plays in. So yeah, I'd go Ronald Jones.
Yeah, I think Ronald Jones is the easy call there.
Pick 2 full PPR: Tevin Coleman, David Johnson, Hollywood Brown. I may need you numbers after a poor Thursday night performance. Pick 2. I'd probably go, especially, I guess it's good context to add, though, rough Thursday night performance. If you're down a lot, 100% David Johnson and Hollywood Brown for me. Tevin Coleman just still splitting the work. He has, crazy upside, I guess, because we saw it 2 weeks ago. But I think you're getting more range of outcomes favored events for Hollywood Brown and David Johnson.
No, I think you're right.
In cash, in FanDuel, pick 2 of the 5. Kirk, Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, or AJ Brown. DJ Moore and AJ Brown.
Yeah, DJ Moore, AJ Brown. It's not really close.
Yep, definitely not close at all. Start sit Juju today if Hollywood Brown and AJ Brown in PPR. Oh, am I about to say you start AJ Brown over Juju?
Yeah, you do. Definitely start AJ Brown over Juju.
Yeah, that hurts. I love Juju, but just not really getting enough volume. All right. Any interest in Jared Cook? I guess, Bobby, that's a kind of a good question for you. Any interest in Jared Cook? If you're running Saint stacks, probably one of the most. I think Ted Ginn might end up being more popular than him.
Oh, you got me all over this Panthers stack now. Without McCaffrey, is that terrible?
I mean, he really does have to score probably twice to be like a good tournament value. Like you need like for him to either that or he needs like the 100.
Yeah.
So if he just goes for like, I don't know, 100, scores once, hits like 20 points, but then the rest of the Panthers go off, I think it's doable. It could happen. I think it's not super likely, but like you're not relying on super likely things in tournaments. I actually think it's fine. So when you were talking about both receivers, I was like, oh, DJ Moore's so good. Dude, Curtis Samuel's awesome. Run them both at McCaffrey. So I think it's possible.
Dude. It's tough. They're really well. They're priced really well. Kyle Allen's priced really well.
Any interest in Jared Cook?
No. Actually, yeah. If I'm MMEing, yeah. I'm just like I'd prefer again. Jared Cook's a good play. I shouldn't write him off that quickly.
Yeah, no. I mean, I would only. You're only doing it in Drew Brees stat, like running with Thomas and probably running back with Russell Gage, but. I think it's in play, I guess. Oh, like really only if you're MMEing. All right, Ginner, DJ Moore. I think that is the bulk of our questions. Yeah. All right. That is the Week 10 main slate for Football Diehards. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. For myself, at Kyle Tweets here. For Bobby Gomes, at Bobby Gomes DFS. We'll catch you Wednesday, 8:15 for the, will that be Week 11 early week breakdown. So everybody, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.